Up to 25 words or less on this Thursday afternoon to bring you this pursuit of a DUI suspect. Police in pursuit of this DUI suspect. The black and whites there. This is a live picture from Sky Fox. Marla Tea is coming to you right now from the Fox 11 newsroom. This has traversed several counties. We can tell you that this started in the city of San Bernardino. Now, as you can see from our extreme nav technology, we are in Whittier. So we've gone from San Bernardino County to LA County, and it looks like a silver Mercedes sedan. Again, the black and whites want this person for DUI, and already a really unusual sight, especially given the time of day with the flow of traffic as heavy as it is at 3:30 in the afternoon on this Thursday. There was an attempted pit maneuver to bring this pursuit to an end right there on the freeway. Again, that's really unusual, but authorities got a good look, and they tried to bring this suspect to this pursuit to an end, and that pit did not work because, as you can see, the pursuit is still underway. But again, given the heavy flow of traffic right now, speeds are reasonable. They are low. In the 30s, according to our extreme nav technology. So we have police, looks like CHP, now that we're on the northbound 5 in Whittier as the lead agency. Again, this started in San Bernardino, and we're looking at the Mercedes there, the 4-door silver. Doesn't, again, wanted for DUI, doesn't look to be driving erratically, which it really can't at this point in time given the heavy flow of traffic. So speeds well below the pit maneuver range, which is exactly why they were able to attempt one in the very first place. Now that I'm saying that, they've got some open road, and speeds quickly picked up to about 50 miles per hour. Of course, we bring this to you live on the air because this serves as a safety public service announcement. If you have anyone out there, please let them know that this person is coming up behind them. It may not look dangerous, but you never know what's going to happen. And that brings me to this next thought, which is now we're going to veer off to the shoulder. So now some more erratic driving just to get out of authorities' eye, but that's really not going to work because we have eyes from above and on the ground, really picking up speed on the 70 miles per hour on the shoulder here. Northbound 5, blowing by exits, Lakewood Boulevard. Now we're in the Downey-Norwalk area. Really dangerous right now. Tight shot, you can see it looks to be a male driver. We never know, given the tinted windows, if there are more people in the vehicle. Right now we're just understanding that it's just one person. Again, you can see the side profile. Yep, looks like a young male driver behind this sedan Mercedes. Speeds now 70, 71, 72 miles per hour, and this is only because traffic is allowing this to happen, but then again, they're choosing to go on the shoulder just to evade authorities. And now it looks like we're in the center lane, moving over to the number 1 lane, doing anything that they can to stay out of handcuffs. We've covered these time and time again, and these can go on for hours, just given the how much gas they have. That's another issue. We've seen them run out of gas, again, picking up those speeds to the 70+ mile per hour range. Northbound 5, Downey-Norwalk. DUI suspects. We're so tight right now, it's hard to get a look at what's going on behind the driver as we're zooming out to see where those black and whites are. If it gets too dangerous, if you've seen these pursuits, which I'm sure you have, what authorities will do, they'll choose to go into the follow mode. Because it just gets too dangerous, so they want to back off and let the suspect hopefully cool off behind the wheel too, so as not to put the public in any greater danger. So we're on the far right lane now. Speeds have tapered off just a little bit. 60 miles per hour, picking up. And it looks like just they're going to go as fast as they possibly can, as long as traffic will allow it. And all of these innocent drivers probably not knowing that a pursuit driver is coming up behind them. 75 miles per hour right now, East Slauson Avenue, northbound 5 and Southgate. All right, let's bring up the video of the attempted pit maneuver as we're seeing speeds now well into the 80s. This is that moment in time when the suspect was going just slow enough. CHP conducted a very successful pit maneuver, successful in that that's exactly what the car is supposed to do, is spin around, but that driver was able to keep going. So there's another look at that pit maneuver. That can only happen if speeds are below the 35-mile-per-hour threshold. So as you saw, it was about 22 miles per hour when that happened. Right now, that's just not tenable given speeds. The live picture is a smaller box, speeds well above 60 miles per hour. So you talk about if you can't do a pit, what can you do? Of course, there are spike strips. You've probably seen that deployed before. And when that happens, that also requires certain traffic conditions, because if you throw out those spike strips, then you have the chance of impacting other innocent drivers. So a lot of times the traffic has to be extremely light. We see that usually late at night that they'll deploy the spike strips. But when traffic is as heavy as it is on a Thursday afternoon at just after 3:30, spike strips would not be an option right now. So pit is likely not going to happen again. Spike strips, no. What they'll do is they'll just get as many units on the ground up ahead, they strategize, and then also behind to follow this pursuit suspect. All right, if you're just joining us, this is Marla Tejas in the Fox 11 newsroom. This is northbound 5 in Southgate. This pursuit is of this silver four-door Mercedes sedan. Inside, behind the wheel, is a noted DUI suspect. This started some time ago because this started many miles away in San Bernardino County. So we've gone from San Bernardino County to LA County, traversed a whole lot of miles. And as far as I know at this point, and those in the newsroom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if there's been any damage to any other vehicles, it doesn't seem to be the case, which is good. Let's hope it stays that way. But again, okay, I have a police specialist on the line. You were with law enforcement for many, many years, retired, if I'm not mistaken. Jim Helmold is on the line with me right now. Jim, good to have you. What do you make of this DUI suspect on this busy Thursday afternoon, northbound 5 in the Southgate area, all started in San Bernardino?
Yes, as we can all see on the broadcast, he looks rather desperate. We don't know if that's because he's under the influence or if there's another crime that law enforcement may not be aware of at this time. But certainly his driving patterns are extremely desperate. Even during the pit maneuver, it was done well by CHP, but he was able to drive out of it. Sort of a lucky circumstance for him. And at some point in time, they'll get the airship above and perhaps try another pit maneuver when it's safe to do so. But what's on the forefront of the mind of law enforcement is making sure that when they conduct this pit maneuver, that it's done in a manner that won't bring a hazard to the general public. Yeah, and that's what I was saying too when it comes to the spike strips, because it's unusual for a pit maneuver to happen this time of day. On a busy freeway, but the circumstances were just right. It was under that 35-mile-per-hour threshold, Jim. But when it comes to spike strips, traffic conditions have to be just right then, too. So when you talk about how to bring this thing to an end with speeds now in the 40s, spike strips are difficult given the flow of traffic right now. That's right, and it's great to see the fact that they're using restraint. They're stepping back a little bit. They can bring an airship to monitor where he's going. So as we see in most of these cases, the suspect's not going anywhere. So by backing off, perhaps his driving pattern will slow down, and then we can execute when there's a position of advantage to do so.
Okay, well, you know, we cover these, and as mentioned, we've been on the air at some points, you know, for hours, and we do this as a public service announcement in terms of for the public's safety. If you're for all these innocent drivers, and now that we have another tight shot of this Mercedes down there below, you know, you're unsuspecting. You don't know that there's a pursuit suspect, especially if the black and whites are so far behind them. What is your word to drivers if you get caught up in this?
Well, you bring up a great point, and certainly broadcasting it does help because there can be an awareness by the general public and drivers. And if you see a pursuit coming on, to just maintain what your current driving pattern is. Don't try to be sort of heroic in a way, because that can also catch law enforcement off guard. If you keep you maintain your current driving pattern, and they're going to navigate what the existing traffic conditions are. So you might want to slow up on the gas, but oftentimes what's frustrating is you see people hit the brake very hard, and that's not necessarily prudent either. Although if you have to avoid the suspect himself, then that's you have to make that decision at that time. But oftentimes we see sort of a random stop or a panic, and that's not necessarily helpful either.
Yeah, and especially we've also seen it where, these unsuspecting drivers who then, become suspecting in that they are aware of the pursued suspect, then they try to sort of help law enforcement and be the hero. You don't want to do that either, because that could end in a very wrong situation.
You're right, and oftentimes this more is relevant when you're on surface streets. These suspects will become desperate and actually try to carjack individuals as well. So we don't necessarily want public to be involved. Law enforcement, we take a lot of training to conduct pursuit operations, and these are among more of the dangerous activities that law enforcement is involved in because of the desperation and the lack of due regard for suspects with regards to their behavior, because they're considering only themselves and fleeing law enforcement, which, as we can see, and you're an expert in the context of you've seen all of these pursuits, and it's extremely rare for a suspect to get away. I can't think of many at all where suspects have escaped capture.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, on our air, we've seen a lot of getaways, if you will, Jim, and I'm not going to give away those sort of tips that I've learned from covering those. Let's remind our viewers who we are. This is Marla Tejas in the Fox 11 newsroom. I'm talking to retired LASD Jim Helmold. He's on the line. You've covered a lot of these pursuits. For folks who may be just jumping on right now, it's 3:40 on this Thursday afternoon. This pursuit that's underway, this is a DUI suspect, northbound 5, now in Boyle Heights. So we're getting close to downtown LA. It's, of course, approaching a holiday weekend, Jim, that should be noted, and traffic. A lot of people are going to head out for Labor Day weekend, so this might be, Thursdays and new Fridays in a lot of cases, so there could be even more traffic as you're getting into downtown LA. Jim, this started in San Bernardino. Here we are approaching, we're in Boyle Heights now. It's covered a lot of ground. We're not seeing the black and whites. Oh, there we are. So now as we zoom out, we're seeing 1, 2. The strategy of these for CHP at this point is they do try to get ahead of the suspect too, not just behind.
Well, normally speaking, we have a duty to warn the public. So the strategy is to put on lights and siren, obviously, to warn the public of the desperate driving, and also to have people move off to the right when they can do so safely. But for the most part, the pursuit position would be in the rear, because you do not want to have a situation where if there's weapons involved, where you have a crossfire situation. You see the door opening, so not certain why this suspect is acting in the manner that he is, but his behaviors are certainly of concern with his disregard for the public's safety and some strange, what I would call erratic behavior. But Highway Patrol, the other factor is watch commanders receive information that they'll relay to the responding officers, and oftentimes we don't have that firsthand information, so we're at a little bit of a disadvantage, but we can see that they're backing off, and it appears to be to try to get him to attempt to stop fleeing from law enforcement. And then at some point in time, when it's a proper advantage to do it, my sense is that you'll see the opportunity for another pit maneuver.
Let me just make it clear. The big picture is video from earlier, so don't be confused if you're looking at the extreme nav technology. This is back when they were in the county of Orange, because you're seeing northeast Anaheim on the 91. So again, this suspect has covered a lot of ground. In fact, it came down the 215 to the 91, now northbound 5. That is the smaller screen on your TV right now. So live full, so we're going to bring it live, and there we go. So now we're on the 60 westbound. You can see through a little, getting a lot of traffic there. There was a tight shot, and it looked more erratic behavior, Jim, of the suspect. And now it looks like we're in one of those situations where not a lot of room to go with so many other drivers on this Thursday afternoon.
Yes, and this is where you may see an approach if there's an opportunity to do so on the side, but they're going to be concerned with the rest of the public. But if the speeds get to a point where it's safe to do so, but pulling in front of a semi-truck is clearly a desperate act, and other maneuvers that you've seen throughout the course of the pursuit. So you can really see why law enforcement has taken every precaution at this point.
We obviously have Skyfox above. You mentioned their own airship. I trust that that's up above as well, and they as in law enforcement. Jim, I think we lost him.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, when the law enforcement airship is there, they're able to guide those resources similar to what a containment situation would be. So that doesn't require the close proximity of the radio cars. That's why oftentimes you'll see them backing off. So the airships are most useful, and they can also warn about upcoming intersections or traffic patterns that might be relevant to a strategy.
So what I'm noticing as we're looking on now on the other side of this Mercedes sedan, on the passenger side, it looks like there's some damage to the passenger door, if I'm not mistaken, as we zoom in. Jim, do you see that as well? Unclear if that happened. Yeah, definitely some passenger door damage. Oh, that must have been, silly me, forgive me, that must have been during the pit maneuver. That's my assumption anyway.
Yeah, it's very possible. It looks like it as far as where they made that maneuver on that portion of the car. So it's very possible that that's what turned the vehicle, or it could have been from previous driving as well.
Okay, yeah. So speeds, I mean, that's how busy it is. Again, the Thursday before Labor Day. And you know, who are we kidding? It's Los Angeles. It's this busy all the time. Test 10 westbound now. Just passing the Alameda Street, downtown Los Angeles. We're seeing some fidgeting inside with the driver now. It looks like trying to go behind his driver's side seat and pick something up. The other thing is that we've dealt when it comes to these suspects. Well, first of all, in terms of law enforcement always takes the approach that whomever is inside the vehicle, because there could be more than one person, even though it just seems like there's one person, but we've covered a bunch of these where in the end, come to find out there's 6 people inside and you thought there was one. The law enforcement takes the approach that the suspect is always armed. You have to always assume that for your own protection. And then there's situations where, you know, family members could very well be tuning in and contacting law enforcement with information and helping navigate the situation there. Jim, did you find that in your experience?
Yes, well, you're right on point in the sense that you're treating every suspect as if they're armed, combined with the fact that the desk may have new information or the responding officers from the beginning based on what prompted the pursuit itself. Oftentimes we've seen family members either in the car or calling law enforcement or the suspects themselves, trying to convince them to surrender. And so there's a lot of things that are in the works behind the scenes, with the foremost being a strategy to deal with this situation, because this is extremely dangerous. Even when the speeds are not high, when they'll oftentimes not have regard for red lights, stop signs, things of that nature. So unexpecting drivers coming the opposite direction are often in danger because their speed may be high. So oftentimes people say, well, he's not driving at a high rate of speed, but when you're an unexpecting driver and you're driving at normal speeds, this can present a problem, particularly at intersections or areas where the vehicles could come into contact, not to mention pedestrians.
Yes, and right, and especially we'll see what happens. As far as I know, this has mainly been on on freeways, not on the surface streets, but we'll see. Either way, it does get a little bit even more precarious once they get onto surface streets. We've seen that because, of course, as Jim just brought up, there are pedestrians then walking around trying to, get to their next appointment or just out for a coffee. And next thing you know, there's a dangerous DUI suspect coming down the street. So we'll see if this suspect decides to stay on the 10 westbound and just carry on, or perhaps go into downtown Los Angeles. So this is, we've been on the air with this for about almost 30 minutes now. This started in San Bernardino, so you can probably do the math. That's a lot of miles between San Bernardino and now downtown Los Angeles. We're on the 10 westbound. We saw this start on the 215, then went to the 91, and then the northbound 5, 60, and here we are 10. So a whole lot of freeways that this suspect has covered. The damage to the side of this silver Mercedes sedan, likely from an attempted pit maneuver that CHP tried when conditions were just right on the northbound 5. It was successful in that it did spin the car around, but then soon after that, the driver was able to still maintain control and took off really at a high rate of speed after that pit maneuver. So now we just got a little more information, Jim, which is pretty interesting. Law enforcement apparently has been in contact with the suspect's daughter. What do you glean from that?
Well, the fact that he goes from driving desperately and fleeing to slowing down, it's interesting. It does sort of indicate that he's in contact with somebody and maybe engaged in a conversation who might be telling him to surrender. Again, this is conjecture. I get to do that as a retired person now, watching from TV. But those are the sort of things that you're able to sort of glean from. Now suddenly he's driving in the lanes of traffic at a slow rate of speed. So I think that law enforcement is taking a strategy of backing off the vehicle, making sure that he's still covered. But the unpredictability of suspects is essentially why they're going to need to eventually take action to bring this person into custody, because you never know. It's just unpredictable nature of suspects is the most dangerous thing that law enforcement deal with.
And when I think of, and by the way, apparently law enforcement actually lost contact with the suspect's daughter, but they did have contact at one point. But when you bring in a daughter and you're talking about obviously that this is her father now wanted in this DUI pursuit, then I think, did this start as some sort of a domestic issue, which is often the case, or which can be the case, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're at the disadvantage of not knowing a lot of those details from here. And I'm certain that law enforcement is gathering a lot of that intelligence, which might lead. Now you see, this suspect goes from driving slow within the lanes to speeding up randomly, and you've seen that throughout the entire pursuit. So that's certainly indicative of somebody who's unstable or under the influence, which was the initial call for this pursuit of why law enforcement was attempting to pull him over. So it could be at that level, or there could be some nuances to the case, and it would be interesting to find that out. I'm believing that the watch commander and the desk who's relaying to troops on the ground know this information, and they're relaying it, and that's why there's a very specific strategy. And it's being well handled, because all of it, these types of decisions are due to the fact that that law enforcement is looking out for public safety. Now, if you had a more desperate suspect, or if he was driving with blatant disregard and burning red lights and driving on the side shoulders of road, there might be a reason for more immediate action. But it seems to be indicative of they either have a dialogue with the individual, or somebody does, maybe a family member, and they're looking to convince him to surrender. And if his driving becomes more desperate, it would seem that they might engage and do another pit maneuver when safe to do so. As
retired law enforcement, if you're in this position, does CHP, does law enforcement, you're getting sort of a tight shot of the man's face. He's wiping his face off a couple of times there. Do you prefer, is it better for public safety that they choose to remain on a freeway like the 10 on a busy Thursday afternoon, or is it better if they go to the surface streets, or is it just the lesser of two evils? Is there?
You know, all pursuit driving, and I know you know this, is extremely dangerous because of the desperation and the unpredictability of a suspect's behavior. But right now, if as long as he's staying in these lanes and not going from lane to lane or on the side shoulder, then it seems like it would buy more time for a peaceful resolve. But the area of concern about a freeway is the speed of travel. Because it makes it very difficult to do a pit maneuver. Again, the suspect's not going anywhere, so a lot of these suspects, they're not really thinking, because they're not going to be able to escape, because you have all the resources and coordination on the radio and the airship to direct where the suspect is. But I would say between surface streets can be quite dangerous because of pedestrians and cross traffic and things of that nature.
We're taking Arlington Avenue here, it looks like. Let's see what happens. Is this just one of those on and off as we're over with this live picture from Skyfox? That's not the vehicle. That is the vehicle? Okay. I don't know why it looked different from this vantage point. Pardon me. And I apologize to the viewers there. It just took me off guard for a second. Okay, so we do have, we're maintaining, he is maintaining, and I could say the suspect is a he. There's a man behind the wheel. 10 westbound and Jefferson Park there off to the right and left. So again, for people who may be just jumping on the air, with us, this is a CHP chasing a DUI suspect, tinted windows of this silver Mercedes sedan. As far as we know, there is just the driver inside. There could be more. This started in San Bernardino. Now we are in Los Angeles. And we do know that, and this happened earlier, this was a pit maneuver that was attempted by CHP, and they did a great job in that it spun the vehicle around, but the Mercedes has a lot of power and it just kept on going. And so he was able to take off and evade authorities there. And now that was about 30 minutes ago. So the pursuit continues on. The smaller box is the live picture as we're just showing you that pit from earlier. And now we are getting off the freeway. I just asked retired LASD Jim Helmold is on the line with me, whether or not it's best to stay on surface streets or on the freeway in terms of public safety. And regardless of the answer, I mean, the pursuit driving is very dangerous no matter what. That was the answer. We're now on Crenshaw Boulevard and West 23rd Street in Mid-City. We know that this can get very congested, Jim, and we're picking up speeds. What do you make of this now, given all the risk to all the pedestrians, and we're seeing that unfold live on the air?
Yeah, and that's the part that brings great concern, because now you have pedestrians, cross traffic, and other hazards. So as soon as there might be an opportunity, you may see another pit maneuver attempt. But again, certainly not where there's pedestrians walking around in areas for cross traffic. And he also demonstrated a desperation level to try to drive out of those pit maneuvers. So he certainly, it appears he may have some experience in driving, and this might be of concern also. But,
well, this is interesting. We're coming to a stop. We're coming to a stop, and now we're making, and I don't mean to cut you off, but just want to bring everyone's attention to this is different behavior. Driving very slowly here, under 10 miles per hour. Now we're in a parking lot. We've seen this before, and this is very dangerous because tight spaces. Now looks like we're pulling over. Are we going to have a surrender? That could very well. Yeah, it looks like it. Here we go. So found a parking lot. He's just kind of waving them off, sort of nonchalantly. He throws his keys, it looks like, perhaps on the ground. Usually they ask you to turn around and put your hands up. There's obviously some words being exchanged. Law enforcement, guns drawn, hands up. We've seen this unfold before. Jim, they'll ask him to turn around, usually walk backward, and then they'll soon enough be in handcuffs, and then they'll go ahead and check the vehicle. So let's watch this unfold. He is doing as he is being told, which is always good because we've seen these situations where it's just been, there's been a lot of resistance, and we're not seeing that other than the actual pursuit itself across San Bernardino, Orange, and LA counties.
I'm at a disadvantage because my feed is not live, so I don't want to interrupt what might be being seen on live.
Okay, yeah. So what we're seeing now, thank you for that, Jim. So we're seeing an officer handcuffing the suspect. I'm not sure what parking lot we're in. It looked like some sort of a small shopping market, strip mall, sort of a scene down below. But this is in Mid-City, right off this is 10th Avenue and West Washington Boulevard in Jefferson Park. So we do have a suspect in custody. And what I was saying earlier is now that this man is in custody, again, wanted for DUI, we will see law enforcement check the vehicle to see if there's anyone else in there. And that includes, of course, the trunk, usually the last place that they'll check. And then they'll throw up what's officially called in law enforcement code 4, and that means that the scene is all clear. So
your years of journalism, you're getting pretty good at this. You got it down pretty good. And yeah, oftentimes a lot of those cursory checks, and normally when there's pursuits, it involves violent suspects. So you want to make sure that there's not anybody else also in the vehicle. We have had circumstances where that has occurred, and it's resulted in unexpected acts of violence at the culmination of a pursuit. So that's oftentimes the most dangerous point. But
okay.
I do have a sense that they were able to either convince him to talk or a family member was.
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt. We're going to wrap things up to get to TMZ at the top of the hour. So this pursuit has come to a peaceful end. Jim Helmold, retired LASD, we thank you so much for joining the coverage today. We'll have the very latest on Fox 11 Plus at 5 o'clock. You can find me there. We'll update you on this pursuit. Here's TMZ. And I don't mean to interrupt. We're going to wrap things up to get to TMZ at the top of the hour. So this pursuit has come to a peaceful end. Jim Helmold, retired LASD, we thank you so much for joining the coverage today. We'll have the very latest on Fox 11 Plus at 5 o'clock. You can find me there. We'll update you on this pursuit. Here's TMZ.
All right, Andrew Kraft here now on Live Now from Fox. You were watching our sister station there in Los Angeles, Fox 11, as they guided you through that police pursuit of the DUI suspect there. From what we were told, it started all the way there in San Bernardino, got to downtown Los Angeles. That driver in that silver Mercedes-Benz pulling into that parking lot, surrendering peacefully to